say you're watching television. Most people don't realize you're already in a light state of trance. Someone might lean in while you're watching your favorite TV show and they ask you a question and then you don't even remember giving the answer. Or you drive somewhere and you don't even remember how you got there.
Thank you for being here today, Elinor and Daniel. I'm super glad that you are here and we could have this fantastic conversation. But before we start going deep into the topics, could you introduce yourself and state why people should listen to you?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be on the show. I am mesmerized by the background. Have a soft spot for llamas. They've served as an imperative animal on our respective journey. But other than that, I'm experiencing the life theme of death to rebirth. And on the outside, I thought that I had it all. There was success. I could list it out on paper. A strong, independent woman. That's what society wants you to become. But under the hood, I was more so living out split realities. I wasn't, there are parts that are still emotionally numbed out and disconnected from who I'm meant to be. And, part of that is the mother wound. It's the father wound. It's wounds brought in from past lifetimes. And I use the term successful loosely because it was successful, but experiencing deep layers of suffocation. And it was the second spiritual awakening, which I had enough. It wasn't ego Elinor, it was soul Elinor that came through and said, enough is enough, living out this illusion and thinking that it's working for you, because it is not. It has just taken me further and further away from the truth of myself. And I needed to then get on the path, or set myself further on the path of understanding why some things simply just don't make sense in my life, why certain pillars aren't able to get started, why things stagnate for decades. And it is through our own consciousness expansion journey that we get to sit here and talk to you. That's me.
And me, well, a lot of past life karma is coming back in this life. I've been on my own spiritual path since about 2016 when I really started questioning everything. And little did I realize that the path would actually bring us together in March this year, after being friends for several years through COVID and finding solace and comfort through the fact that someone else actually understands what's going on and all of that as well. So with that, with the spiritual journey, it's been here, it's been with us. It's been individual for both of us. It goes back into past lives, and it really is showing the bigger cosmic picture in the game that's playing out. That extends far beyond just Daniel and Elinor alone, which I think makes it so special to us.
Let me get that straight. You had some blocks due to which you couldn't see what you had in front of you, yet you were looking for that your whole life.
Of course.
Yes.
Do you know what were those blocks, and what does spiritual journey mean for you?
So I'll first start by saying that we're big on astrology. And so the way I can simply state it is my Chiron is in the first house in Cancer. And for Elinor?
Chiron, second house, Cancer.
And Cancer is the raw emotional wound. And Cancer is the emotional sense. The first house and the second house, a sense of self and values. And Chiron is the wounded healer. And to have them very early in your chart is representative of one that actually does have deep wounds that carry over between lives as well, that continue to play out as a repeating theme, usually before you realize what's happening. So that there is a very good, like an esoteric indicator that we sort of found after stumbling along, making after mistake.
Does it mean that you were numb to your emotions, like running away from your emotions?
Definitely. It was a suppression rather than, it was more that it wasn't running away because you would only run away if you know what you're running away from. And this wasn't done consciously. It was a disconnection. It was living above the line, just a floating head. And look at me, so logical, so in control of everything. And then not recognizing that under the hood, it's unconscious agreements that are really running the show. It's a shot nervous system that only knows how to be stressed and doesn't know how to be relaxed that is running the show. So it was also a lot of paradigms and rejection of emotions, period, that I did not connect, I did not recognize them as part of the human experience. And this also was established at a young age and then kept on going throughout up until my adult life, is that anytime I have expressed emotion, it has been weaponized against me. It has been boomeranged back at me. There has been no one but Daniel who has sought to really understand, okay, what's under the layers of these emotions, and being able to hold the space for the emotion to express itself in any way, shape, or form. And the lack of expression or the ability to express then, of course, will continue and duplicate itself into many other aspects of life as well. So emotions is also a big lesson of my soul. It's part of my soul destiny, is learn how to connect with emotions, learn how to live through an emotional filter, and having them only come online, I would say, in the last year, and learning to live through a whole new paradigm and recognizing the importance is so revolutionary as well.
The moon being your chart ruler too shows the need for emotional, authentic emotional expression. It's a big theme in your life.
And not having that it explains why you're on this journey, because there's only so much that can suppress. So was it a numbing out? I mean, for me, it translated as being a workaholic. So hustle culture. I subscribe to that hustle mentality, and you have to do more, because my unconscious scripts would only have my worth be as good as my output. So the more productive I am, and not even productive for me, but productive for someone else, then my worth is going to go higher and higher. And of course, that is a fundamentally flawed relationship. So for me, the escapist modality was work primarily.
It seems you have been running away, but it started to chase you even faster.
It knocks. The emotions knock. And when mine came, they erupted, and it was not pretty. And they just spilled over everywhere like a volcano. And then I'm like, I feel better now. But I've just created even more chaos, and it was all sorts. But yeah, the running away looks like many different forms and different escapist modalities. People think of it as just being drugs, alcohol, and sex, but it's work. It's over anything is not a great thing.
Do you feel like society has used you? Because they have been saying you need to do this, that, you need to behave in a certain way. But, all of us are different. I can be only me, and that makes me unique. Everyone else is already taken. I cannot be Elinor. I cannot be Daniel. That's not possible. So do you feel that society has programmed you incorrectly?
I think society's role is to program you incorrectly. Where's the contrast going to come from? Whether society is your microcosm, your paternal and maternal impactors, or it is the workplace, which of course wants you to be so controllable and so big, or if it is societal at large, so talking to culture in which a woman has to follow certain scripts and timelines, a man has to follow certain scripts and timelines. So society is doing a great job at doing that, and hopefully causing the abrasion necessary for people to be thrust back into themselves.
Can I add, there's a quote from Terence McKenna, and he goes, "Culture is not your friend." And I think that speaks volumes. Culture has its own agenda, and it doesn't necessarily respect the needs of the individual as well. And
so what is your truth right now? Yes.
I'm going to go big here. My truth is infinity. What does it mean? That's the puzzle. It's simple, but it's also impossible to explain. Once you've experienced it, once you know what that means, you recognize just how much of reality is both being created by yourself, but also that you have set things up to be this way at the same time. And it's a paradox of sorts that cannot be reconciled at the logical mind. That's the thing. The scientists, the mathematicians, they think of the grand unified theory as some mathematical equation to explain everything, when truth itself is beyond all of that. The argument I use for people who try and approach it from a logical perspective is to go into Gödel's incompleteness theorem, that shows whatever level of proof you have fits within a model that you have to go outside of to prove. So the truth is always one step above any level of proof. And that's why ultimately, when I connected with that, I realized infinity is really only the highest truth that one can achieve.
So infinity for you is nature, universe, or some people might call it God.
And it's everything that is happening right now. And whether you choose to acknowledge that or not, or whether you choose to block things out, that's also part of it too. So the game is one that ultimately is recognizing just how everything is being created by you and by reality itself. It's a paradox, but it's one that you have to experience directly. I've tried to explain it, and if you haven't experienced it directly, it's impossible to understand.
Have you ever been exposed to philosophy of Tao, which is very similar to what you were saying? Taoists believe that all attempts to explain it are futile because it cannot be explained.
Yeah.
The words do not exist. What does truth mean to you, Elinor?
I have not had the infinity experience, but intellectually it's also challenging to grasp without the first-hand experience. It is through my own experience that only love is real. Everything else is illusory. Everything else is false, and it is only love. And we're not talking about the Hollywood love or the version of love that society presents you with, but this the love of creation. It is just love, and from that basis, we already are everything. There is nothing that is missing or nothing that we do not or cannot access in this incarnation, in this experience. It is all love. It is the only thing, and I think you can call it a thing, but it is the only thing that is real.
How do you know it's true?
Sometimes you slip into the void of existence and it presents itself to you when so many layers of this reality, we are able to suspend that and access a point, I don't want to say point of origin, there's something behind the void, but accessing that directly from source, whatever source means to you, is such a profound experience when something is delivered to you in such a way. Like, people might be listening, it's like, yeah, I've heard this before, but so what? Love can't pay my bills. Love can't do all of these things. But to connect with it on an experiential level and see it for exactly what it is and finally understand it on your own, it is such a big part of the journey to come to that. So I'm saying it right now, and to some it may land intellectually, but until you don't access it firsthand, it may remain in the mental realm for some people.
Can I add on that as well? The famous occultist Aleister Crowley, he had the famous quote, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." People ignore the second half, which actually clarifies on that, saying love is the law, love under will, which I think is very important to consider, that love also is the creative force of reality, and that's what makes it true.
Because people choose to believe it is true. And just by observing it, they made it real.
That's it.
It seems that you're very emotional and Elinor is very logical, and that is a perfect blend of balance. How did you first experience this void?
I think from where we've come on our paths, we started seeking experiences or healing methods and light duty things, like, sitting around in a circle and just talking about our feelings was not going to move these unconscious mountains or allow us to access the deepest truths of ourselves. And we found that in order to keep on moving and to keep on unraveling we weren't also satisfied with the depth of answers through some modalities. So we had to keep on seeking, how do we go higher and higher and higher as well. And if it wasn't for that curiosity, then we wouldn't have, been able to access that level of awareness as well. And that's a big part of why we've been able to access this kind of knowledge as well.
You don't get to where I've been without tools and aids. The problem is that I've done so much work to sort of suspend and research and understand the wisdom. I've got a copy of the Tao Te Ching in my room as well, which I've read. The first few times I couldn't even begin to understand it, but now it makes perfect sense. That I've read stories of people going into psychosis and needing to be institutionalized for these sort of things because they're so attached to who they are here that they simply just don't know how to integrate what they've experienced.
So is it the truth, or is it what they have been suppressing, or is it the same?
Well, the truth is everything. The truth is also nothing. It's non-duality principle. But from what I've read with a lot of sort of standard doses, they start exploring parts of their unconscious that they've been blocking or rejecting, that it's hurting them. They're causing harm to themselves, at sometimes a physical, sometimes an energetic or mental level. And when you don't have the ego's ability to compartmentalize and create boundaries and blocks from that, you're forced to confront all the parts of yourself that you thought you could ignore before. So I would say it's both.
And how can one integrate that?
That's a big question. Always studying the self. Pythagoras had the quote, "Man, know thyself, and you shall know the universe and God." The idea with the non-duality principle is that the degree of separation from the idea of someone as a self and someone as God is all imagined. But we also need to do it to be able to play out reality too. And that's the paradox within it as well. So my recommendation is always do anything to understand yourself deeper and deeper in any way that works for you.
And what works for you?
But I'm exploring different modalities, and I'm finding it's simply the exploration of the esoteric and the mystical that is opening doors for me that I've rejected my entire life. So it's not even a matter of what specifically, it's where. And it's the direction of considering that by ignoring reality as a mystery, exploring reality as something that isn't just you're born as a human, you live, you pay taxes, and then you die. It's just even loosening up those boundaries to try anything that is really already giving me so many answers. And the big one for us lately is past life regression, learning where experiences, skills, wounds, and the sense of self that we carried in past lives and knowing what it means for this life too is probably the biggest one at the moment that we're beginning to learn a lot of answers from.
What answers did you receive, and how did it impact your life? How did you use it, the experiences from your past life to this life? And do you think anyone can use it?
We all have a brain. We all have unconscious aspects of ourselves playing out. Anyone can be hypnotized. The challenge with it is to make sure that you can know how to relax, know how to visualize, and trust the process. Because the first time I actually had a past life regression, I very much struggled with it. And that was struggling to relax. My body was shaking and struggling to visualize when I generate the experiences through sensation before visualization.
So is visualization a big part of the process?
In some of the modalities, that's the one they lean on the most, but I don't particularly experience it as a visual phenomena first. It's generated as a new body through the experience, and then the visuals come to support whatever the experience around me is. So simply put, the idea of going into hypnosis is getting yourself into a relaxed state. So you might think, say you're watching television. Most people don't realize you're already in a light state of trance. Someone might lean in while you're watching your favorite TV show and they ask you a question and then you don't even remember giving the answer. Or you drive somewhere and you don't even remember how you got there. And so these are already light states of trance that we already exist in. So the idea of getting someone into a past life is you get them into a deep state of trance where they're so relaxed and they are they've surrendered their conscious self. It's very much like when you're just about to fall asleep and just after you wake up, where you're in this really sort of state between worlds. And it's from that hypnotists can actually guide you and help you generate the visuals to be able to remove yourself from your experience as this self to generate the past lives. And it's interesting because some people think that these can be just imagined. when you start crying and you start reacting in the body to what's actually happening very personally, you very much know that these aren't just imagined, but these are past experiences that are resurfacing.
And are active.
Yeah.
So how was it for you guys?
I'll let Elinor speak to this one first.
Yeah, the first regression I had was the day after we got together, after Daniel's life-changing regression for both of us, but he'll speak to that. But in that session with the regressionist, I was more shown how the soul had already, like I had already lived through lives in adherence to false value systems and false authorities and false paradigms, and the fulfillment that the soul thought it would get from those lives, like a trophy wife, a judge that made access for other women to work in the legal system in like 1600 Londons or all the like. That was unfulfilling. And in the middle of that regression, I was shown I felt what it's like to be a mother. And of course, we are all mothers, you know, we all have an inner child. So I'm not talking about, you know, the birthing experience, but being able to experience that deep emotion in the body and to be shown, you know, where does the real value system actually lie? That was a deep experience. It was through a channeling that I did with the same regressionist. I had an active heart wall that was still playing out after I was a kid in a market, and then my mother left me because this sibling was more important. And I was lost. This was a Pompeii life. It was Pompeii early on. And then Daniel actually put me under as well. And the same theme of abandonment came up. This time I was a 12-year-old boy and the family just left me some money. It's like, go work on the docks and you'll be fine. And then Daniel asked the higher self, is this an active wound? And it was established in a heart wall. So we tend to think that these blocks that we're experiencing, or why can't I access my heart? It sounds so simple, is that the experiences foundationed in another life are just as present right now. And one cannot let go of something that they cannot see. Or if you don't know the origin of it, then how can I release it? So there were so many things that were just active, and there are still so many more things. And this is where, you know, seeking these modalities is imperative, because sometimes our life has limited experiences, but the blocks are just astounding. So it's like, where did they foundation? Why are they still here? And what do I need to do to release it? And that is not something that the conscious mind can access alone. So my experiences have been powerful. I see it happening like a movie. It's great. It's a visual experience for me. I feel it. I feel it as well. But yet Daniel's had some other experiences.
Yeah, so I spoke to the one last year where I struggled. I did get a lot of answers, which helped pave the way for the big one we had this year. We went up as friends.
It was an optional, obligatory trip
that I was happy to go on. And so we're from Melbourne, and we went up to Brisbane just for a getaway as friends and to experience a past life regression one day after another. And so because I knew what to expect, going under it was a lot easier for me this time, and I was able to go so much deeper. And I had 5 lives where all of them were male. All of them were in authority or represented some level of mastery in some form, and they represented strong masculine energy, very healthy masculine energy. And what I realized by the 4th life is that it was actually filling a void, and it was giving me access to male role models in which I don't have strong access to in this life at all, positive or negative. There's just a void there. So they were filling in gaps that were missing. And that actually paved the way for me to actually realize, you know, I'm not stepping into my masculine. I don't even know really how to. I don't even have permission. Society didn't give me that option. This goes back to what we were talking before. Culture's not necessarily your friend. And so being able to feel that immediately invigorated me. And I walked out of there realizing that I had feelings for Elinor. And that night, 4 hours after I walked out of the session, asked her how she felt about me, how she felt about us, and if we wanted to try something. And she said yes. And I think that just goes very much to the fact that the past lives themselves showed me that what I needed were just missing pieces of knowing how to assert myself, just knowing how to act in a way that it's okay if she says no as well, because boys, not men, are timid. Men know how to act, and they know how to take the lead, and they do know how to take action and move forward without fearing what's going to backlash. They know how to think and see past their own feelings of rejection, for example. But it was with that I think I was able to assert the energy that showed Elinor that I was ready for this as well. Where if I'd realized and asked her prior, I don't think it would have worked between us to the level that it does now.
So it dissolved some internal blockages.
So the hypnotist, she did an excellent job also helping to understand me before you go under. Because when you go for aggression, they have to build a rapport with you. They have to understand you. They have to know where you're having challenges, where you want healing. And so she did an excellent job at helping me gain perspective on the beliefs and the blocks, and the challenges that I were having were quite illusory. They were mental constructs that weren't necessarily real. I was constructing them as real, but that I was only constructing them on my own terms without external reinforcement necessarily. So then when I went under, I was able to perceive them in a way that actually highlighted the fact that I don't need to see the world like that. I don't need to hold these disempowering beliefs about the need to be a man, about the need to be able to assert and get in touch with my own needs at that level too.
So those experiences, it seems, for both of you allowed you to confront what society wants of you and what is truly good for you.
I just want to add, though, it helped break down not only what society and culture has done to us today, but what past society and culture did to us in previous lives as well. Because being able to find yourself among a world that's trying to condition you is also part of the game. It's part of the challenge. And that's also where the greatest glory comes from, when you can find yourself despite what society is trying to tell you. Gives you a whole new level of conviction to be able to move forward with your own life. And that confidence, because it's the truth. When you connect with yourself and you know who you are, you know why something or someone means so much. You don't need any external reinforcement because it's all within you and you know how to access that.
How can you limit impact of society to oneself?
I mean, the Buddhists would always go out into the mountains and try and get away from society. There just need to be some level of separation. This is why in the tarot, for example, the Hermit card plays the need of you find wisdom in solitude. There is a need to understand that part of the spiritual path to find these answers must be done alone. And so when you've got all the chatter of not only your own conscious mind, but you've got society also imposing its values on you all day, every day. Just look at advertising, for example. It is mental warfare for your attention. There is a need to separate yourself from that so you can find yourself as well. I would also say consuming high quality content. There's so much, I don't want to say junk, but there's so much watered down wisdom that can be found these days, where it's very hard to actually get something that's very it's very concentrated as well. Read amazing books, listen to podcasts like yours that go into some deep topics, and they don't just sit at the surface, they penetrate and do that in a way that you're not only going outside of yourself to find answers, but reconcile the reflection of that's playing out internally at the same time.
So do you think those internal blocks affect us as in they affect our health?
Absolutely.
For me, it didn't play out in major major afflictions, but why don't I have energy? Why, by profile human design, using one model, I'm a generator. I'm meant to have such an overflow of this, but it was, a couple of years ago, I would sleep for 10, 11 hours and I could just not wake up in the morning, no matter how much I slept. And I thought this was a physical issue. So you try and address it from the bottom up. I went to a sleep coach and they're like, a routine. I'm like, no, it's not the routine. I'm not doom scrolling before bed. But what it was, it's the soul avoiding the situation that was completely out of alignment with my natural disposition. So it's not going to want to partake in this reality. So for me, what I have mostly experienced is a lack of vitality, just a lack of energy on the day-to-day. And sure, there's lower back pain, there's shoulder pain, that back of the neck pain that has been there for as long as I remember, and that is from carrying the responsibility or shouldering things that I should not be shouldering. So until that is released, the shoulders are going to be tense. That's going to be creating a stiff neck, and then a stiff neck is also respective of the head-heart coherence, that the messages cannot get through because this whole channel is blocked. Another major theme for me has been sore throats. I do not speak my truth necessarily, that's the lesson that I have been needing to learn. And all my life, I have swallowed my truth. So systematically, I would get a sore throat at very convenient times, or just periodically. And yeah, sure, it's a common cold, Elinor, but for 30 years, you do not grow out of this at any point in time. So that is a consequence of swallowing my truth. And nowadays, now that more layers and I am more sensitive to how this is playing out, my throat will physically clam up. I feel the physical pain when I need to be speaking. And the higher self said this, you're not speaking, you're going to feel it in real time. Then I'm not doing this. So that they've been the major themes for me when it comes through suppression of any energy that needs to move. And
is the universe guiding you?
I would hope so. Yes. Yes. I mean, we do act out of free will, and there are certain aspects that the soul, or lessons and challenges that the soul subscribed to in this lifetime, that it wants to experience it. But everything we need is right there. It's it's right here from the universe. We are being guided, whether we listen to it, whether we're paying attention, whether we're tuned into that station, whether we're seeking it. They're the variables. But the fact that the universe is always there, guiding, supporting, loving us, that's fixed. It's us who are not able to receive that.
So those signs are signs of us running away from our true nature.
There's a lot of running. Yeah. The signs are definitely there. I mean, we don't need to look for signs externally. Lower back is hurting. Why is the lower back hurting? What is it? How is it trying to speak to us? We are a microcosm of the macrocosm. So, the body's trying to say something. What is it wanting to inform through the medium of pain? Sure, there's angel numbers and whatnot, and synchronicities, and synchronicities are a beautiful experience of the universe. But of course, we are immensely supported. The universe isn't daft. It's not going to put us here in Earth school and then not give us anything to work with.
The universe is infinitely powerful, infinitely intelligent, infinitely loving. And when you understand the oneness of all of it and the way it interconnects, everything will play out through you. You hold on to belief systems that aren't true. You're going to feel it somewhere. You don't even respect the body. You're going to feel it there, but then, you'll have mental decline. Everything is interconnected with everything else, and everyone is interconnected with everyone else, and everything with everything else. There's the degree of separation goes back to it's all imagined. And so the body absolutely feels everything that's playing out as well. And, as I've heard the saying, pain is one of the best ways to get your attention. I've been exploring a lot of other people's experience primarily and doing a lot of meditation, which is where I've learned most of my lessons. And that's taught me more than anything. So I do spend a lot of time to meditate and contemplate, and that's where I've actually found the most insights, even though the most profound ones came from the infinity experience.
What type of meditation do you do?
Contemplation, breath work, but I do enjoy the Gateway tapes by Robert Monroe, to go out of body and to explore the astral. I'm not particularly as good as I would like, but I'd say where I've actually come back with the most answers is just dreaming and dream journaling with Elinor as well, and really taking away what was actually happening and what it meant as well, and contemplating on that. I need a still mind just to be able to understand what it means.
And what is still mind?
Still mind is without all of the chatter, telling yourself that I am Daniel, I am a human, I live in Melbourne, and
what did you once put it? It's like the big Italian family, and they're all talking at the same time.
Yeah. Or it's like being in a big crowded hall, and if everyone's talking, you're not going to hear, like, or if the person on stage is talking with the mic, you're not going to hear that one person whispering in the crowd. You know, it's being able to listen to the real subtle energy playing out when you're not getting in your own way, which is exactly how past life regression works. It does the same principle.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. You actually have been able to integrate it successfully. It doesn't happen for a lot of people. It's a double-edged sword. So it could create you or it could destroy you. It's a tool that is to be used very cautiously. So I'm super happy for you that you have been able to use it correctly. If people would want to find you, where would they go?
truthofyou.com.au. I'm the Elinor Moshe on Instagram and Elinor Moshe on LinkedIn, and it's Daniel Darman on LinkedIn and Daniel Darman _ on Instagram, and we are Truth of You on TikTok as well. But